Hey guys, Cal here today with the 2025 Ford Ranger Raptor, and today I am doing this review for a very special subscriber of mine who has been requesting for months that I review the Ford Ranger Raptor. And my friend, I hope you are watching because today I was finally able to find one on the lot. So today we are going to compare the Ford Ranger Raptor and the GMC Canyon AT4X, and at the end I'm going to tell you guys which truck I would buy. And I know we're all truck people here, so I know we care about our horsepower and torque figures. So we're going to start by taking a look under the hood of this Ranger Raptor. And you guys will see the 3-liter V6 that pumps out 405 horsepower and 430 pound-foot of torque. Now that GMC Canyon AT4X I drove had the 2.7-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. That engine put out 310 horsepower and 430 pound-foot of torque as well. So this engine in the Ranger Raptor does have quite a considerable horsepower jump over that 4-cylinder engine that was in the AT4X. And you definitely do notice it. Even though I've only been behind the wheel a short time, just around the parking lot and such, and just driving down this short road, I have already noticed that this truck does feel considerably more powerful than that AT4X. And if you guys are looking at $60,000 trucks and are still for some reason concerned about fuel economy, I am happy to report that both of these trucks basically do get the same fuel economy. When I drove the GMC Canyon AT4X, the window sticker said 17 city and 17 highway for the MPG. As for the MPG in this Ranger Raptor, the window sticker does say 16 miles to the gallon in the city, 18 miles to the gallon on the highway for a combined rating of 17 MPG. So even though this Ranger Raptor makes almost 100 more horsepower than that AT4X does, it gets around the same fuel economy, which is actually pretty crazy. And of course, the Raptor is known as the high-speed off-roader. So the AT4X does win out in this category. We're talking about approach angles. The AT4X has an approach angle of about 36.9 degrees, whereas the Ranger Raptor here has an approach angle of only 33 degrees. But again, like I said, this is known as the high-speed off-roader. This isn't exactly the purpose-built rock crawler, so I think this approach angle is more than enough for this truck. And going over the breakover angle on both of these trucks, the 2024 AT4X that I drove last year had a breakover angle of about 24.5 degrees, and this Ranger Raptor that I'm with today has a breakover angle of about 24.2 degrees. So they're both just about the same in that breakover angle respect. So the Ranger Raptor here is showing that it too can handle those difficult off-road trails. And while we're on the topic of breakover angles, we'll also talk about ground clearance. The AT4X had 10.7 inches of ground clearance, and this Ranger Raptor also has 10.7 inches of ground clearance, although I did find it interesting that the AT4X, instead of having side steps like this Raptor has, had rock sliders. So it really kind of harkens to the uses for both of these off-road trucks, depending on what side steps they have. That had rock sliders, this has side steps, this is made to be the high-speed off-roader, that's meant to be the rock crawler. So it really makes sense. I love how these trucks are equal in that respect, but it's kind of funny how just by the side step choice alone, you guys know the purposes of both of these trucks. And because we are in a truck today that does say Raptor on the side, we got to talk about suspension travel. And up in the front here, you have 11.4 inches of suspension travel, and then in the rear, you have 9.8 inches of suspension travel. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick look at the underside of this truck, and you guys will see the 2.5-inch Fox live valve shocks that are able to make that suspension travel happen. These have a damping rate of up to 500 times per second. As you guys can see, the underside of this truck is very well protected. You guys can see in the front, we have skid plates everywhere. If we go in the center section here, you guys can see plenty of skid plates and protection under here, and even more as we go back. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at the back here. Again, it's 9.8 inches of suspension travel in the rear end here. Here's those 2.5-inch Fox live valve shocks. Again, the suspension setup on this truck is just gorgeous. The AT4X does have a little bit less suspension travel than the Ranger Raptor up front. It has about 10.3 inches of suspension travel in the front end. However, the AT4X does have more suspension travel in the rear at 11.6 inches. So that is definitely going to help it out of some of those sticky off-road rock crawling situations. Talking about the track width of both of these trucks, the AT4X does come in at about 66.3 inches for its track width. This Ranger Raptor is 67.3 inches, so it is 1 inch wider on the track width. So if you're looking for something that is 1 inch slimmer to fit in those off-road situations, the AT4X is going to be your choice. And now looking at those departure angles, the departure angle on the Ranger Raptor here, believe it or not, is better than the departure angle on the AT4X. The AT4X had a departure angle of 25 degrees. This has a departure angle only slightly better of 26.4 degrees. So as you guys can see, I'll give you a quick side view at that departure angle. We'll go ahead and take a look under here. I love how on the back of these, they have these sweet tow hooks on the rear end, wide open and easily accessible. I love the dual exhaust look back here. We'll go ahead and get under here and take a quick look at the suspension setup from the rear. And again, that exhaust setup, look at how sweet that looks. This truck does have quite a nice rumble when you start this up compared to the 4-cylinder that is in the AT4X. And then also, look at that, that is a full-size spare under here. You gotta love that. And this whole truck, it really is so purpose-built. It is awesome under here. And talking about the bed size back here, neither truck really has an advantage over the other. The bed sizes are rather small in these mid-size trucks, as you guys know, but I don't think really many people are buying mid-size trucks for their bed size, but you guys are still going to be able to put stuff back here like a fridge from Lowe's if you guys go there to pick that up, if you go to pick up a washing machine, if you guys want to throw some size 4-wheeler back here with the tailgate down, you can do those things in this truck. Now, the payload in the Ranger Raptor is a little bit higher than the AT4X. The AT4X was quoted around 1,250 pounds for its payload capacity. The payload capacity in this truck is a little over 1,400 pounds. I think I read somewhere about 1,411 was the payload number for this truck. So it is just a touch higher than that AT4X. And while the Ranger Raptor does have a slightly higher payload capacity than the AT4X, it does have a lower towing capacity. So the AT4X is rated at 6,000 pounds towing capacity, whereas this Ranger Raptor rated at 5,510 pounds towing capacity. It is a small difference, but it is a little bit of a difference. So you guys just have to ask yourself, is payload more important or is towing capacity more important to you? And that should help guide you in the right direction of which of these two trucks is the right truck for you. And besides all the technical details of the AT4X and the Ranger Raptor here, we'll go ahead and take a quick tour of the appearance of the outside of the truck here. And you guys will see up front, those LED headlights are really sharp looking. I like that C shape that they have. When you get down low here, they are nice and bright. You have those LED turn signals right there as well. That Ford Raptor grille looking very nice on the front of this Ranger here. Your side mirrors do have turn signal indicators over here as well. Of course, you have passive entry. On this one, we do have a surround cam option, and then coming down here to those wheels, as you guys can see, those are bead locks because, hey, this is the Raptor. I mean, what is a Raptor without bead lock wheels? You got to have the bead lock wheels. I really, really like those. Now, one thing I did notice up front is that why can we not have those cool clearance lights that the actual Raptor has? I know it's probably because by DOT standards, this truck is not wide enough to have those 3 lights from factory, but to have those would be really, really cool. I mean, come on, this is the Raptor, you know. I mean, you have guys with Toyota Tacomas that are buying those lights on Amazon and throwing them on their truck. At least Ford did already give you the 3 pre-made slots to put those lights in, so all you got to do is basically just drill them out and put those lights in there yourself. But it would be really cool to see that as an option from factory, although like I said, I'm betting that they are probably not able to do that. And then coming around to the side profile here, if we open up the fuel door, as you guys can see, it doesn't say anything about premium, which is pretty surprising, so that's cool. You can run this truck on just 87. And then on the side of this one, we do have those Raptor graphics because, in my opinion, I don't know. I know some guys like the plain look, but if I'm getting a Raptor, I kind of want the truck to have the Raptor graphic. I think it's part of the cool factor of this truck. The AT4X looked equally as beautiful as this one does on the outside. It also had all the LED, nice looking lights in the rear end, just like this one does here. You guys can see those bright LED turn signals. You have that Raptor badging on the tailgate as well. Now, in my opinion, the Raptor and the AT4X are both equally beautiful in their own ways. Like the AT4X had these really cool little marker lights that were on the fender flares of the truck, front and back. Those were really cool looking. It did have some sharper looking wheels that had sort of a diamond edge finish. They were really cool looking, but they weren't bead lock wheels like these ones are. And the tires on this, there is no comparison. comparison, the tires on this, just awesome tires. Like, these are top money tires in my opinion. And you know, the AT4X tires, while they were good, you know, they didn't really have quite the profile that these ones do. They didn't have the presence that these tires do. So if you want better looking wheels, go for the AT4X. If you want that thicker tire profile and thicker tire presence out on the road, the Ranger Raptor is the way to go, because this thing is menacing just looking at this wheel and tire setup. Back seat space of this Ranger Raptor is roughly the same, at least visually, to the AT4X. These mid-size trucks, as you guys know, are not meant for seat space. Like, I will take a seat behind myself, right? This is in the same position it was when I was sitting up there. And as you guys can see, you know, I'm kind of straddling the seat a little bit here. I'm sure I could smash my knees to that inner portion as well. Whatever's more comfortable for you, but these mid-size trucks are not known for leg space in the rear. But I gotta say, overall, the interior in here, give you guys kind of a POV shot of what the view from the front seat looks like. You guys can see, in my opinion, this is a very tactile, sporty, very well done quality interior. However, I'm gonna say visually, the AT4X's interior was a little bit more gorgeous than this. It had a lot more attention to detail. The inlays of the seats had like little tire track patterns on this section. They had a whole section of like white and red leather stripes up in this upper section across the whole top of the seat in the rear. So I have to say the AT4X's interior was much more impressive, but it kind of depends on what mood you want to go for, right? This is like the minimalist, tactile, expensive looking interior. You know, it's really meant to be not too flashy, but just have a little bit of flash with those touches of red in here. And it does have kind of a nice, cool suede or Alcantara pockets in here. Whereas the AT4X, visually, it did look much more impressive than this Ranger Raptor. But overall, I was still very impressed when I did get into the truck. As you guys can see, the front seats here, you have those Raptor insignias on the top in plastic right there. It's just a smooth leather, but it does look quite cool because as you guys can see, just like the rear, you have those cool suede or Alcantara pockets, and then those touches of red, just like we had in the rear. And then getting into the driver's seat here, you guys will see that red stitching and that Raptor badging on the steering wheel. And just like the F-150 Raptor, got to have that red leather stripe that will eventually wear out in color, and you're gonna have to get red nail polish and paint back over it. So, and for anyone that is taller, I am 6'2", and I have definitely more than enough space in the front seat here of the Raptor. Yeah, it is a very nice interior in here. Like I said, not as flashy and not as imaginative as the interior was in the AT4X, but I'm not saying it feels cheap in here. It still feels very expensive, but for someone looking for an interior that's less busy and maybe a little bit more business instead of pleasure, you know, as an interior, this is definitely going to be that tactile look that you're looking for. Now I'll put our foot on the brake and reach down and hit start. And while the AT4X did definitely have more bling factor on the interior as far as like how that display looked and how everything had nice little finishes on it here and there, like chrome and, you know, polished aluminum looking finishes and little touches of red, just like the Raptor has here. It was a very good looking interior. However, this one's much more minimal. That one did have its own buttons for the front and rear locker down here. It was kind of nice to have them open and accessible like that. And then down here for your 4 high, your 4 low, tow haul mode, you do have a nice button for that handles all that in one. And then right here, if you guys hit this button in the center section, it brings up the front camera to give you guys a look at where you are going to be going on the trail when you turn the wheels. So I thought that was really cool. You guys can turn auto stop start off, which is sweet. I'm not crazy about this shifter. If I do remember correctly, I think the shifter in the AT4X was a little bit more traditional. I did like that style shifter a little bit better than I like this one. You hit a little button on the front end of this and then put it back in a drive like that. It's okay. I'm not saying it's the worst shifter I've dealt with. We do have paddle shifters back here. You got to remember the Raptor, in my opinion, over the AT4X does have more customizability in the driving experience. So as you guys can see, if I hit the steering button here, it lets me adjust the steering. If I hit this button here, it lets me adjust the suspension. You know, if I hit this button down here, I can even adjust the exhaust. So I definitely got to throw a point towards Ford's Corner for that customizability on the fly with with those buttons on the steering wheel in the Ranger Raptor here. This here, my 26-ounce Yeti tumbler, I was a little disappointed to see that it doesn't really fit in these cup holders. It just kind of sits on top of them, as you guys can see. So if you do have a fairly large water bottle, do know that it might have a little bit of difficulty fitting into this. I think maybe those Stanleys, those big tall cups with the handles, those might fit in there pretty good because they do have a slimmer base. But if you do have a bit of a wider base one there, not really going to fit in. And then also, I thought this was a little interesting is, I know this is a relatively easy truck to get into. It's almost a little comical that it has side steps because it's really not a super high truck, right? But I'm kind of used to getting in my truck with my grab handle here. So to not have a grab handle here, would you look at that? The passenger's got one. What happened to the driver's handle? So, all right, passenger's all set. But the driver, you are on your own over here in the driver's seat. What a fun truck to drive, man. All right, this guy's, as you guys can hear from the exhaust sound behind me, the Raptor, so fun to drive. I mean, if you guys are gonna have this as a daily driver versus the AT4X, you're gonna have way more fun in this truck. This just hands down is better. It's much more fun. That exhaust note is fantastic. However, there's one big part that I don't like about this truck so far, and that is the sensation, the feeling of the braking in this truck. I don't feel super confident when coming to a stop in this truck. Sort of hard to get an idea as to how much brake response is coming in as you're putting your foot down. So not a super confident braking experience. So I do think that's a big thing that I should note for you guys. That aside, the customizability of those performance settings, the ability for me to play with that exhaust on the fly as I'm going down the road like that, and the sound, the 4-cylinder could never compare to that engine note back there. That is incredible. I would burn so much gas in this truck just to be able to hear that sound back there. I would go through a lot of fuel in this truck, whereas the AT4X, that 4-cylinder doesn't really inspire me to do things like that. It's not particularly exciting. In fact, when I was driving that truck, it does have all the performance numbers on paper, right? It's got 310 horsepower, which is what V6s were making years ago. It has 430 pound-foot of torque, which is a pretty good amount of torque. But when you're driving it, it just doesn't make sense. For some reason, you don't feel those performance numbers out of that truck. That's one thing I didn't really like about the AT4X is it did feel beefy behind the wheel in the way that the steering wheel felt in your hand. The whole truck felt very beefy with its wide tires and the whole way the truck was designed. It has a very cool aura and like vibe and presence out on the road. So overall, in my opinion, the driving experience as far as sportiness and fun day-to-day driving, if this is going to be your daily driver, that is going to go to the Raptor, hands down. Yeah, this truck would never get old on the daily commute. I freaking love this thing already. Now, off-road stuff aside, if I'm just talking about using one of these two trucks as a daily driver, my choice would be, and I'm really surprised I'm saying this because I didn't think I would say this coming into this review today, but it is the Ford Ranger Raptor. That's what I would choose as my daily driver over the AT4X. Like I said on our drive review, the powertrain in the AT4X was a little underpowered in my opinion. The driving experience feels great overall, but I did want some more power and personality out of that drivetrain, and that's what I got out of the Ranger Raptor here. This has so much personality. I would waste so much gas on the way to work in this thing. I would have that rear window open constantly, and I would probably have the exhaust in Baja mode all the time because it sounds absolutely fantastic. So if you guys are looking for an all-around great daily driver that has a lot of personality, but you still want to stay in this mid-size truck realm, then the Ranger Raptor is the perfect choice for you. Thank you guys for watching my review today of the Ranger Raptor. Before I let you go, I did want to give a quick thanks to my friends at Bob Johnson Ford in Avon. I'll have all their info in the description down below. If you guys haven't already, like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next new car review.